Sharma Garu. Good morning, all. Gurubhyo Namaha Sada Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmat Vande Guru Param Hari Om. Good afternoon, all. It's my great privilege to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Aravind Sita Raman. Arvind ji is a computer scientist with the 57 global patents for his innovations on internet technologies. He has lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for many years before his move to India. He ran the Cisco development organization in India as well as managing a global business. He has been a very active social worker, and the state of Karnataka recognized his work by awarding him the highest civilian decoration, the Rajotsava Award. Since 2014, he has been working full-time on Kanchi Kamakoti Peetam programs. Once again, I welcome you, sir, to this very interesting lecture. Thank you so much. The stage is yours.
Yeah, please go ahead, Arvind.
Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parambaram. Om. Hi guys, welcome to this session of Dharmamulam. Today we are going to be talking about Sanatana Dharma. In some ways this should have probably been earlier and upfront, because what we are trying to do is give you a snapshot of what Sanatana Dharma is, give you some kind of a framework or architecture so you can understand what Sanatana Dharma is. So my hope is that by the time I'm done today, you would have a very good understanding of what Sanatana Dharma is, the key concepts and key principles of Sanatana Dharma, and then maybe it will help you grow more in terms of exploring and understanding our civilization better. I have very few slides, so what I want to do is I want to present my deck, not too many slides, but I want to encourage a lot of questions, and however combative or controversial it can be, that's okay, because we are trying to learn together and see if we can enhance our understanding of what our civilization is. Okay, so question is, what is Sanatana Dharma? So the way you need to look at Sanatana Dharma is, it's got 4 pieces in the puzzle. First are broad principles that are given to us. These are good and bad activities as defined by our Shastras. Second one is the concept of karma, the results of good and bad activities. Third concept is how to be a good citizen. Fourth is, what is a great society? Right? So these are the only 4 broad principles that I'm going to be discussing about, and we can see where that leads. And if those of you who are listening, who are students, if you can put your computer on mute, that will be great. Thank you. First is the principles of Sanatana Dharma. So when you look at the principles of Sanatana Dharma, you can divide them into 2 large buckets. One is things that you are encouraged to indulge and things that you are encouraged to avoid. Okay? So, and there are 10 of them. And some people say that this is the Sanatana Dharma version of 10 commandments. But I don't want to use that terminology, only because although there are 10 things here, unlike in the 10 commandments where you're asked not to do a lot of things, here you're saying that you need to do 5 things a lot and 5 things you need to avoid. Okay, so let's go into what they are. So what are the things that you are asked to indulge? External and internal purity. So when external purity, it's very clear in Tamil, we have a saying. So, Kuranalum kulittu kudi, kandayanalum kasakki kattu. What it means is, even if you're going to drink just kuru or some kind of a porridge, always bathe before you drink it. And even if you wear tattered clothes, wash it before you wear it. So it's very, very important for you to maintain that external purity. Second is internal purity. What does internal purity mean? Internal purity means that, what we think and what we speak. Those are called internal purity. Second is positive contentment. What is positive contentment? Positive contentment is not about being satisfied with what you have. It's about being happy or not being unhappy if you don't get something. So, for example, let's say that you have one house and then you then go and buy another house, a vacation home or something. You buy a third vacation home. And then, as and when you're traveling to different countries, you want to keep on buying property everywhere. Now, this is the problem, right? Or let's say that you have one pair of shoes, and every pair of shoes that comes out every 3 months, you want a new pair. Now, if you need to buy it for different uses, that's fine. But if you're going to make this a habit and it's only about collecting things, then it's a problem. Third is controlling sensory cravings. What do you mean by sensory cravings? Your organ of taste, your smell, what you see, what you hear, what you touch, and so on and so forth. You need to moderate that. Let's say you like to eat ice cream a lot, or you like to eat pizza. Everybody likes pizza, and I certainly do. Now, if you were to eat pizza, fine. But if you want to eat pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 365 days in a year, then you are out of control. And there's a recent study that came out that some kid in France was eating junk food all the time, and he essentially became blind because the fatty and fast food is not good for health. So controlling sensory cravings is an important aspect. Fourth is learning about ourselves. Who are we? Where did we come from? Why are we human beings? Why are we born to the parents that we are born? Why are we tall? Why are we short? Why are some of us are stronger than others? Right? So those are things that we need to understand a bit more and understand our purpose in life. The fifth thing that we are asked to accept is acceptance of God as supreme. In other words, not being atheistic. Now, we may argue as to what God means. We may argue about whether God is a man or a woman. We can cover that later on Q&A if you want to talk about it. But you need to believe there is a bigger principle than us. The reason being that if you're atheistic, you essentially will care only for yourself. You don't care about your siblings, your children, your parents, your family, your society. So understanding not being atheistic is very, very crucial and important. So what are the 5 things that we need to avoid? Physical, verbal, and mental violence. Now, physical violence, we understand. If somebody irritates us, we go and hit them. Now, obviously, that's not very good. I'm sure your parents have told you, use your words, not your hands, right? So no point getting into a physical duel. Now, if somebody comes and attacks you, then you have a right to defend yourself. But you don't want to be the person who will initiate such an attack. Second is verbal violence. Verbal violence is what? Using harsh words against your peers, your siblings, your parents, your grandparents sometimes, your children sometimes. And because what happens is when you use verbal violence, you may forget it, but the person who's receiving that violence will not forget it that easily, will keep working on that person's mind all the time. In fact, in Tamil, which is my mother tongue, there is a Tirukkural, is a beautiful set of philosophy which is there in the Vedas also. It's basically a summary.
Right.
What they say is, Teenar Suttapun Ullarum Arade Navinar Shuttavadu. What it means is, if you burn somebody with fire, it will heal over a period of time. Yes, you will have a scar, but over a period of time, even the scar will go away. But if you abuse somebody with your words, that scar, mental scar, will stay there forever and ever. So it's very important to avoid verbal violence. What is mental violence? Let's say that you're dealing with people and you don't like what is being told. And you're not, so they can say, oh, our Shastra says no physical violence, no verbal violence, but I will mentally go and kill them, mentally go hit them, mentally think harm of them. Now, the reason why that is bad is because it's bad for you. The other person does not get affected. It's for you. In some ways, in the West, they call it passive aggressive behavior. So in your mind, in your words and physically, you will all be compliant, you'll be smiling, you won't disagree. Mentally, you will think bad, and you'll essentially subconsciously do all the wrong things to jettison something, whether it is at work or school or a project that you're working on, you would do that. So it's not a good idea to get into violence. Doesn't mean that you need to be a passive character all the time. There's a very subtle distinction. Remember that on our outlook is one thing, our dharma is something else. So I will cover that right now, and we can discuss more in the Q&A. Our whole approach to life is ahimsa. What does ahimsa mean? Not to hurt anything. Now, many people think that ahimsa was a concept of Buddhism, but it's not true. Buddhism is really a copy of Hinduism. In the Yajurveda, one of the first mantras that you have is that you go to pick darba grass, kusha grass, and before you go cut the grass, you apologize to the grass and you say, I'm so sorry, I'm going to cut you and I'm going to take it, but I'm going to take you. But remember that I am doing this for good reasons, for dharmic causes, and I'm going to use it for good purposes. So don't feel bad that I'm cutting it. I'm going to take only one part of you, and may your species grow dramatically and grow more and more, so that more good things can be done. Okay? To cut a grass, we say this prayer before we go cut a grass. So ahimsa is our outlook in life. We look at all beings, not just human beings, but also animals and plants as part of our family. We call it Vasudeva Kutumbakam. That's our outlook. But what is our philosophy towards life? Sama, Dana, Veda, Dhandam. Samam is compromise. Dhanam is to give up something so that you can get along. Vedam, to create divisions amongst your enemies. And Dandam, use the stick. Okay? So you need to understand there is a difference. While our outlook is ahimsa oriented, our philosophy of managing our strategic things or to manage our life is to use the Sama, Dana, Veda, Dandam philosophy. What is the second thing you want to avoid? Lying. No matter how big the lie is, whether it has a color or not. Sometimes we say, oh, it's only a white lie. It's okay. I want to give a lie or an excuse so that I won't be punished for something or I won't be penalized for something. Any kind of lying will take you away from your end goal. So think of it this way. You're launching a ship into space, an airship into space, a spaceship. And let's say it is off by a small degree. Do you think that you will reach your endpoint after you travel for several days? Absolutely not. Because even if it's a 1 degree off, by the time you go, here's the object, and you start here, slightly one off, you would slowly go away and away from the target. That's what lying does to you. It takes you away. So the question then is, how do we deal with certain things that you may have to lie? There are three things that are said in our Shastras that you can lie about. I'm not going to tell you what they are, because the minute I tell you, everybody is going to use that and find some kind of a loophole to get it into lying. Okay. But there are some extraneous, severe circumstances where lying is sometimes necessary, but sometimes it is better not to say anything rather than lie. In fact, in some of the stories, Puranic stories, they say, don't, if you need to tell a lie, don't say anything. It has consequences, but or best thing is tell the truth. But sometimes truth can be a very harsh thing. So, for example, here is a story in the Mahabharata. In the Karna Parva, Krishna relates the story to Yudhishthira and to Arjuna. There is this Muni, a Rishi, a Brahmana, who takes a vow that he will never lie. And he's there praying all the time. And one day, there is a set of bandits who invade the country, and all the villagers run away and hide in the forest nearby. So the bandits come to this Brahmana and ask him. They look around, they can't find anybody. The only person they find is this Brahmana sitting and praying. They ask him, where are the people here? Now, this Brahmana has taken a vow that he's not going to lie. What does he say? He says they are hiding in the forest. What do the bandits do? They go kill them, take away all their possessions, and go away. Now, was what he did right or wrong? So, Dharma is very subtle. So, this is what's called as a Shankatam. Dharma Shankatam. It's a conflict that you have. And you will have to make the choice whether you're going to lie or keep quiet. Now, if he did not respond, they probably would have killed him. But he wasn't thinking along that. He was only looking at it from a very literal sense, that he's not going to lie, and therefore he is going to tell them where it is. So this is where the concept of Mukhyartha and Lakshyartha come in. Mukhyartha is the basic meaning of anything. Lakshyartha is the associated contextual meaning. So if I tell you, I ate a whole mango, in your mind, would you think that I ate the mango with the nut in it, with the the nut inside? No. In your mind, you would automatically discount the nut, maybe even the skin, right? So that is called Lakshyartha. So you need to use the correct analysis for getting to that particular point. Okay. What is the third thing you want to avoid? Is coveting. What is coveting? Coveting is something that it is not yours, but somehow you want it and you act on it. So I know that Sudarshana Garu was there yesterday and he gave you this example of a 100 rupee note lying on the road, or $100 note that's lying on the road. And the question is, will you take it? Will you leave it as it is? Will you take it and give it to the policeman and say that I found it on the street? What would be your action? Now, if you imagine, let's say, $10 note, $1 note, it's not a big deal, and you may just turn it. What if it's $1,000? What if it's $10,000? What if it's $1 million? What if it's $1 billion? So this is the Shankatam that we have, that we need to constantly look at. And this is where the corporate greed and a lack of ethics come into play, when people forget about coveting and they take illegal actions because they see something that they can gain from something and they think nobody is watching. Okay, we'll come to about who's going to watch you and all that in the next few slides. Okay. Fourth thing to avoid is inappropriate sexual union. This is a very straightforward, explicit thing. I don't need to explain too much. But what an important caveat here is inappropriate sexual union in thought, word, and deed. All three are wrong. Now, when you say you're wrong, you want to avoid them. Our culture our civilization is very clear. they know that people find it hard to say, okay, I will never do it. But people will always be tempted with something or the other. But over a period of time, you keep avoiding them more and more. Slowly, a lot of these things will go away from you. The fifth thing is excessive possession. Excessive possession is a corollary of the positive contentment. With positive contentment, what did we say? We said, don't be aggressive about collecting too many things. If you don't have it, don't think that, oh, I wish I had this. I wish I had a house in Switzerland where I can go for summer. And you're feeling bad that you don't have a house. That's indulge. Avoiding is not to keep collecting houses, not keep collecting cell phones, not keep collecting shoes or whatever it is that you fancy and that you want, to a point where it becomes an addiction. Essentially, what they are trying to do is get you to stop being addicted to anything. Okay? So, this is the first set of things that we are going to cover. It's called principles. Okay. The next concept that we're going to talk about is karma. So, you would have all heard of this word, karma, right? So, we are going to define karma in a greater detail so we can all understand what it means. And I know that Sudarshana Garu covered this yesterday with you, where he talked about CCTV cameras and microphones everywhere. That's recording everything that you're saying and you're thinking. You're saying, seeing, hearing, breathing, eating, everything, touching, and thinking. So it's recording everything. And they are all stored. Where is it stored? It's in a big database called Sanchitam. Sanchitam is the good and bad effects of all things in your life is stored in one huge database against your name. Your name is not your name as you've been given by your parents in this life, but there is something called a unique identifier that is given to everyone. In computer terminology, you call them as UUID. Universal unique identifier. This unique identifier is valid across multiple janmas, multiple births that you have. Okay, so these are all stored against your name forever. Now, some of them manifest. Some good things manifest, some bad things manifest. They are called prarabdham. Prarabdham are good and bad things that manifest in your life. Okay. Usually what people do is they think only good things are stored in your database and only bad things show up as prarabdha. That's not true. Good and bad things are stored in your database. Bad things and good things show up as prarabdham in your life. So that prarabdham determines what family you're born into, who your parents are going to be, how your health is going to be, how your wealth is going to be, how smart you are, how tall you are, what color you are, and every characteristic about you, right, is what comes from prarabdham. So if you are smart, you're good looking, you're married to a wealthy family, you're born into a healthy, happy family, born to a wealthy family, you're born with everything that you want in life, and there is happiness all around, it means that you have done a lot of good things in your previous life, and it's showing up as prarabdham. Now, for other people, it may not be so. It doesn't mean that they have not done good things in life, but those things have not materialized yet. They haven't manifested yet. For some people, you may have noticed when they are young, they have a lot of good things happening for them. But when they are older, as they're growing older, a lot of bad things happen to them. It's a roll of dice, almost a roll of dice in terms of what comes forward, what goes backwards. So now I'm going to tell you how to manipulate that roll of dice, okay? How to change what happens to you. That we come to the third one. It is called agami. Agami is good and bad effects in this life. Whatever good you do, whatever bad you do in this life are added to Sanchitam. But if you do a lot of good things in this life, your probability of getting good things coming to you in this life itself becomes a little higher. And I've seen this practically. I've learned this theoretically, but I have seen this practically, with Pariva's grace. I've seen Swamiji's grace. I have seen the effects of how he would ask somebody to do something because they would have come to Swamiji and said, I want this, 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 this. He'll say, fine, but I want you to do these things. Those people who did those things that he's asking them to do, guess what? They will get what they want almost immediately or soon thereafter, at least in many cases, or most cases. And some people may not do it and they will never get it. Not because they don't deserve it, or they will not get it, but because they are not influencing the probability outcome at this particular point in time. I hope it's sort of clear. One important characteristic of karma is that this is only for human beings, because human beings have something called free will, which none of the other beings have. They don't have free will. They work based on nature. Human beings have a choice in terms of doing the right or the wrong thing. Okay? Pardon me. Okay, moving on. What is the third principle that we have? It is called Purushartha, human goals. Yesterday, Sudarshana Garu talked to you about Dharmartha Kama Moksha. So when you're doing good things at home, and if you listen, pay attention carefully, your priest will say, Dharmartha Kama Moksha, Chaturvida Phala Purushartha Praptham. So what it means is that you will want these four things, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So we're going to define what it means to you. Purushartha means human goals. Okay. This is for all human beings. It's not only for Brahmanas or anything. This is for everyone. Question is, why are we in this world? So Shastras say there are four goals that you will have. I'm going to reorder this thing a little bit so that it will help you understand. It's close to Maslow's model of requirements and need. One is wealth, artha, physical and financial security, right? That is the reason why we all want to work. Second is kama, happiness, pursuit of happiness. You have it in the US Constitution, pursuit of happiness. Comfort, you have the fundamental right to pursue happiness. Third is dharma, doing good outside yourself or beyond yourself to other people, public service, charity, and so on and so forth. Now, an important concept here is that your artha, your kama, and the dharma, all three need to be done dharmically. Okay? So, you can't say, oh, I am allowed to pursue wealth. You're allowed to pursue wealth. In fact, I would love it if all of you become billionaires in the world. Why? Because we'll talk about why you should become billionaires, because you can do good things for other people and good things for other beings in the world, right? So you should, Shastras say I can pursue wealth. So let me start becoming a robber baron. A robber baron is somebody like Rockefeller, who sold bad insurance things to people, to poor people especially, and he became very, very rich. And then later on in his life, he used that money to do charity. No, that doesn't count. That's not charity. That's not good. It's not dharmic artha. Second is pursuit of happiness. Okay. Shastras say I'm allowed to have happiness, and sometimes taking drugs helps me relax, and therefore I'm going to take drugs. No, that's not allowed. So, because why? Because it is not dharmic kama. Okay? You can enjoy, you can get the best car, you can get the best home, you can wear the best clothes, you can buy the best shoes, you can eat the best food, you can have the best vacations, as long as they conform to what is considered dharma. Now, dharma here, you need to qualify something called, yesterday he talked about Vishesha Dharma and Samanya Dharma. I'm going to qualify that a little bit more. Vishesha Dharma is Vishesha Dharma Swadharma, that is your dharma based on who you are, is very important. And then the second part of Vishesha Dharma is special vows that you may take in terms of pursuing your Swadharma. Okay, so it's like saying a difference between fundamental rights and constitutional rights. Constitutional rights are things that the Constitution guarantees that you should get. Fundamental rights are my right to exist as a human being. I don't need a constitution to come and say that I have a right to exist. Although in many constitutions they do say that, but I don't need the constitution to tell me that. That's a fundamental right of me. Okay, so that's very, very important. Then third is dharma. Now, dharma is a very complex, overloaded term, right? We talked about Visesh Dharma and Samanya Dharma, common Dharma, and Swadharma, and so on and so forth. How can dharma be adharmic? So there are examples. So, for example, Annamacharya, you've heard of Annamacharya. He's a great poet, great bhakta. He's written phenomenal stories. Sorry, not Annamacharya, but Ramdas, Bhakt Ramdas. He wanted to build a temple at Bhadrachalam for Rama. What did he do? He was a tax collector for the king, who was a Muslim king. He collected a lot of money in taxes and quietly used all the money to build temples. The king found out about it, threw him in jail. Was the king right or wrong? King was right. Was Ramdas right or wrong? Ramdas was right from intent, but wrong by action. So what happened? Rama and Lakshmana show up before the king as rich merchants, and they ask him to release Ramdas. And king says, no, but they've stolen so much money from me. He's stolen so much money. Who will compensate me? We said they will compensate. We compensate the king. They give the darshan to this king who is not a Hindu king, but they don't give the darshan to Ramdas. Okay, so you understand. So you cannot steal something from people and use it for good purposes. Even if your intention is right, your action is wrong. Okay, so there are better ways of dealing with it. Okay, and there are several cases in our Puranas that have this kind of Dharma Shankatam, but always people err on the side of being right both on intent and action. Okay, the fourth one is called moksham. What does moksham mean? Moksha means being free from these other three, dharma, artha, and kama. Why? Because every time you have action, it goes into sanchitam, and the sanchitam has to show up as prarabdham that are good and bad for you, and you need to keep on doing good, and you will end up doing good and bad things in every life that needs to influence your prarabdham. And this cycle goes on and on and on. And at some point, people say, they start with this question: I have enough money for all my family needs, my immediate needs. I have enough money for my children and my children's children and my children's children's children, and so on and so forth. Is there a way for me to do good in this life so that it becomes an investment for me in the next life? That's how they start. Shastra says, yes, if you do good in this life, it becomes like an investment that you make in the thing. It is called adrishta phalam. Adrishta means that you can't see. Good things that happen that you can't see. Adrishta phalam. Somebody wins a lottery. There was one lottery, I think, in last year in the US that went for $1 billion, right? $1 billion, and somebody won that lottery. What did that person do in this life to deserve that other than buying that lucky number? It's something that they have done in the previous life that they've invested that is showing up in this life as a lottery that they won, right? So almost every good thing that shows up in this life is a result of some karma that we've done either in the previous life or in this life. Okay, so that is thing. So those of us who get into a point where we say, you know what, I don't want this. I don't want to go through this stress all the time. How can I, get away from it? That is called moksham. It's a completely different thing where you need to get into sannyasam and stuff like that. And that is not for you guys, okay? So many people think when we start talking about dharma, it means that you need to become a sannyasi and you need to lead an austere life. No. In fact, Arjuna asks the same question in the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna gives a very simple answer. He said, no, you need to be in this life, behave as if you are a lotus leaf. I don't know how many of you have seen a lotus leaf. A lotus leaf grows from inside the water on the clay, lives in the water the entire life, surrounded by water, but is not touched by water. Right? So you need to be like a lotus leaf, is what he said. So you can live in this life, go through standard education, get a job, dress, in any cool fashion that you want, but have the right attitude, the right focus in life, so that you can be a better human being. Okay, you will have better goals, and you can be there. And over a period of time, you will qualify, you will become eligible. So there's a difference between eligibility and qualification, right? You know what that thing is, right? So, for example, I may have a doctoral degree from India. I have qualified, but I'm not eligible to practice that in the US. Why? Because I haven't written the qualification exam there. So here you develop your qualifications, and at some time you become eligible to go to the last final stage. Okay, we won't get too much into that because that's too technical for you guys to handle. And if you really want to understand how to get there, you can talk to Sharma, and he will set up another class. I will talk about the basics of what is the road, what is the map to get across to the other side. Okay, all right. So the fourth one is called Varnashrama. Now, many of you have heard of the caste system. Now, let me tell you, Varnashrama Dharma is not the caste system. Okay, it's very, very important for you to understand that. But I will let me expand that a little bit. In our Shastras, divided people into 4 Varnas, 4 groups. Brahmana, the teacher. Kshatriya, the public servant. Vaishya, the business person. And Shudra, who is the laborer or contractual worker or a worker. Now, this group is also classified into 3 parameters. One is Janma, or by birth. Second is Karma, or occupation. Third is Guna, or character. Now, can any of you control your birth? You can't. You are born where you are, right? So you can, that is the caste system. You are when you are. So you can be a Janma Brahmana. If you Janma Brahmana, if you are born in a Brahmana family, you are Janma Kshatriya if you are born in a royal family or a family in public service. If you are Janma Vaishya, it means that you are born into a business family or somebody dealing with wealth. Or you can be a Janma Shudra, you are born into a family that is very low, labor oriented, meaning they don't think for themselves, they just do what other people ask us to do. Okay? So that is what the caste system is. Now, caste system is not what Varnashrama Dharma is. This is not the idea of Sanatana Dharma. Okay, you need to understand that. Second parameter is karma, occupation. Now, you can't choose where you're born, but you can choose what you do in your life. Right? So, who is Karma Brahmana? Karma Brahmana is who does learning, especially scriptural learning and teaching. That's a Janma Brahmana. Karma Brahmana. Who is a Karma Kshatriya? Karma Kshatriya is somebody is in public service, is in the administration of the country, law and order, defense. Those people are all Kshatriyas. What is Karma Vaishya? Somebody who is constantly thinking of money, how to make more money, how do I transact, how do I farm, how do I trade, and those kinds of things. Anybody who's into that is Karma Vaishya. Who's Karma Shudra? Karma Shudra is somebody who's skilled or semi-skilled labor. Let's say you finish your engineering degree and you go take a job. You are a Karma Shudra because there is no independent thought, or leadership initially. Over a period of time, you can become, a teacher within even your company. You can rise in ranks and you can become a teacher to other young people and teach them the ways to do things better. but initially you start off as a Karma Shudra. The third parameter is guna or character. What does character mean? You choose how you are. You choose how you respond to things. Remember that the principles that we went through and the Purushartha we went through, you determine who you are and what you want to be in your life. So a Guna Brahmana is somebody who is spiritually oriented, he's reclusive, he's not always wanting to party, meet a lot of people all the time. Doesn't mean that you don't want to, you can't meet people, you can meet people, you can have fun with people, but you don't want to do it all the time. Enjoys being silent, right? When there are people talking, you not narcissistic saying, hey, look at me, I want this. Even in social media, you will see people say, oh, how come nobody is liking what I'm posting, right? You don't, want any of that. Inquiry into yourself, into a higher state as to what is my purpose in life? What can I do things that are better? People who give up certain degree of comforts in order to do something better. For example, can you give up $1 a day to accumulate $365 so that one child in India can get good education? That is Tyagam. That is called Guna Brahmanatvam, being a good Guna Brahmana. What is a Guna Kshatriya? Somebody who's dynamic, active, energetic, selfless in nature. All the things that the person does is so that he can help the country, the nation, the people to achieve better things in life. Okay, that life is all about service. What is Guna Vaishya? Same dynamism, same activism, same energetic behavior, but selfish in nature. They want to make money. Remember, not making money is not bad, as long as the idea of making money is to do good. Your comforts is very important. Your savings for your family and your future is very important. But all the same time, keeping 5, 10, 15% or whatever you're comfortable with to do good is important. If you're doing that, that's great. If not, you fall in that Guna Vaishyatvam. What is Guna Shudra? Passive, lethargic, non-motivated kind of a person. Always serving other people, not always thinking about a selfishly oriented attitude in life. So what if things are happening around me? I don't care. I'm happy. I'm happy watching my movies. I'm happy watching, doing my social media stuff all the time, posting photos. That's all I do all the time. And I don't do anything good in life. That also is called Guna Shudratvam. Okay? So this is the societal framework that we have. The question is why? Why do we need to have such a balance, such a society? Because they wanted to achieve balance. Our ancestors realized that there are 4 things that control everything: knowledge, power, wealth, and numbers. So, what did the Brahmana have? He had the knowledge, but he did not have power, he did not have wealth, he did not have the numbers. What about Kshatriya? He had power, he had no knowledge, he had no personal wealth or numbers. What about Vaishya? He had wealth, but he didn't have knowledge, power, or numbers. What about Shudra? They were numerous in number, but they didn't have knowledge, they didn't have power, or they didn't have wealth. Now, the 4 groups need to come together for the society to work. This is the beauty of our system. Okay? So we did not discriminate against anyone in any circumstance. So, for example, I'm going to go back to the slide and I'm going to say, okay, think of somebody who was born a Brahmana, who was by occupation a Brahmana and by guna a Brahmana. The great rishis that we had were like that. They were born a Brahmana, like Vasishta, Agastya. They were all like that, right? Bhrigu, and so on. Give me an example of somebody born a Brahmana was by karma, by occupation, a Kshatriya, and by guna, a Brahmana. Vishwamitra was actually born into a Kshatriya family. It's not the right example, but he was born into a Kshatriya family. Initially was a Kshatriya by profession, then he became Brahmana by profession, and had a guna of a Brahmana. Right? So, on the reverse, think of Ravana. Ravana was born a Brahmana, was working as a king, as a Kshatriya, but his guna was Shudra behavior. He was very dynamic and extremely well learned, but it was always about self serving, serving himself. Right? Serving does not mean serving other people alone, it could be self serving also. Right? Tamasic nature. Some can argue that it's a guna vaishya, but I think it's more guna Shudra kind of behavior. Think about Vidura. Vidura was born to a Shudra woman. His occupation was a Kshatriya. His guna was a Brahmana. Think about who are that there are several examples like that in Mahabharata and Ramayana. If you take Rama, was born as a Kshatriya. His occupation was Kshatriya, but his guna was a Brahmana, right? So there are multiple different combinations that happen. And what happened was, because invaders came in, they couldn't understand this dynamic of how things work. They said, no, you're born to a Brahmana, you're a Brahmana. If you're born to a Kshatriya, you're a Kshatriya. They made it, they created the caste system. In fact, Chanakya said, a man is great by deeds and not by birth. Which is very, very true, isn't it? So you can, but then you have an added advantage. You're born to a Brahmana family. So you've already got several steps higher or ahead than all your peers everywhere in the world. Because of your past good karmas, you are born to Brahmana parents. And therefore, you are able to do something with your life. Now, what you do after you're born and with the skills and the kind of facilities and grounding that you got is up to you and how you take it forward. Okay. So these are the 4 things that we talked about. Okay. Now, what is the important point here? If you look at these 4, the principles, karma, and about the purushartha, they are all about an individual. Society, the Varnashrama Dharma is about society. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? Why? Because an individual makes a society creates development, and development generates greatness. So, if you make sure that the individuals are okay, they are good, then the society becomes good. And the society starts functioning together, and all 4 varnas come together and they work well together, and that creates a great development, and that brings about greatness. Okay. So, if you were to plot it like this, and you look at achievement on the x-axis and fulfillment on the y-axis, lack of leadership, what does it mean? You're a Guna Shudra. There's no pursuit of achievement, no pursuit of fulfillment. If you pursuing only full achievement, but you're not pursuing fulfillment, you are a Guna Vaishya. You're selfish. If you are pursuing achievement, but you're not, if you're pursuing fulfillment and if you're pursuing lot of fulfillment but some achievement, you are a Guna Kshatriya. But if you are pursuing good achievement and high fulfillment, then you are a Guna Brahmana. Okay. So this is a chart that you may want to remember, that if you want to be a Guna Brahmana, it needs to be selfless and enlightened leadership. Now, what was, this is, as you know, this is Paramacharya, as we call him, the Puja Sri Shankara Chandrasekharendra Saraswati, the Mahapariva, as we call him, our present guru's guru. Now, what he said was, he said, Hinduism is not the name that we had. What we called is Sanatana Dharma. We did not call it Hinduism. It's a name given by the Britishers. It's not our name. And at one time, this Sanatana Dharma was there almost all over the world. Um, and if you see, that is what we called as Bharata Varsha. Bharata Varsha is everything from Mauritius to Russia, Egypt to Borneo. This entire mass of people were called Sanatana Dharmis. Now, there are many examples where people are digging and they're finding Vinayaka Vigrahams. They are finding anthropological correlation between practices that we follow here and in, say, Peru, with the Inca civilization and so on and so forth. There is a huge connection with the natives of Australia. So I'm not including all of that. I'm just focusing on this area that we call as Bharata Varsha. So this Bharata Varsha survived 1,000 years of barbaric invasions. 1,000 years, the Muslims and the Christians invaded. They occupied Bharata Varsha for a long time. But guess what? In India, as we call it today, 84% are Hindus. So we never gave up. We fought them. We kept on fighting them. We didn't give up. And 700 years, the Christian nations fought within our environment, in our group. Our culture did not die. It continues to survive and it continues to thrive, even if it means thriving only within our families and inside our homes. It's not as it was before. Let's say that in the olden day or in the ancient times, it was 100%. Maybe we are operating at 10% today, but even 10% is good because it's not dead yet. So how great was this Bharata Varsha? So let me give you an example. So if you look at the blue line, the line on the top on the thing, I don't know if you can see my mouse moving. That is the economic line of Bharata Varsha. So 2000 years ago, we were about 33 to 35% of the global economy. Now, if you look at the US today, United States, you know where it is at? It's considered the most prosperous nation in the world today. It is at only 22%. So can you imagine how prosperous Bharatavarsha was in those days? And over a period of time, it declined. And then there was a big dip that you see here. And that is the creation of the Mughal Empire. And then when the Mughals died and the Marathas came back to power, then you see a small bump up. But when the British came and colonized the nation, it fell very dramatically down. And you'd see a corresponding line, this orange line is Western Europe. You will see that as we fell, they rose. You see this line that dropped? You know what that is? That is after the first War of Independence in 1857. The economies in West completely tanked because it looked like they were going to lose this entire colony. And then they won, and then they shot up, and then we went down. This is basically what happened in terms of things. So China was the second, which is the red line that you see below. You know, you may have seen several movies showing, glorifying the Roman Empire or the Egyptian empires. At their height, they were only 22% of where we were, of the global economy. So can you imagine how much of opulence that we have? In fact, there are several senatorial records from the Roman Senate where Pliny and Ptolemy were complaining, saying that every year we send several ships laden with gold to India, and in return for spices and trinkets. He said these trinkets that we get from them, we hold them so valuable. But you know, the most common person wears these trinkets on their feet. What our queen, the Caesarina, wears around her neck to show that she's got these pearls. The most common person, the most common fisherman in India wears it on her feet as if to insult us. that is how opulent we were as a civilization, as a name. Now, who did this study? It is by an organization called Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD is what it's called. And it was done by Professor Angus Madison from the UK. And he had a whole team of economists and scientists working with him to come out with this model of where the wealth is. And it was a big shock to the world, because here they were teaching children and the world that it was industrial revolution that brought prosperity to the wealth. It is not. It is the plunder and loot of India and China that made the West very, very rich. Okay, so I'll leave that with for you guys to think about. And with that, I'm done with my presentation, and then we can get into Q&A.
Okay, we will go one by one.
Yes.
Sitaram raised a hand. First, we'll go to the Sitaram.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead, Sitaram.
Yeah, thank you so much, Arvind, sir. This was truly a very enlightening discussion for us. I had one thought on the whole, so-called caste system actually. So what I mean, I read this in a couple of places, and there was from what I understood was like when the Britishers and the Westerners, when they came here, and then they had to go back and explain how our civilization was, the whole emic and etic thing. So they had to explain it like this. So they made a kind of a mapping. So they said their clergy was equal to our brahmanas. So their warriors were equal to our kshatriyas. Their seafarers were equal to our Vaishyas. I think I made a mistake. Their royalty was equal to our Kshatriyas, their seafarers were equal to our Vaishyas, and their common workers, the common folk, were equal to our Shudras. So, and in their system, everything works like a pyramid. The lower level keeps working for the higher levels. Whereas for us, it works in a scaffold. Like how we build a building. So everyone rises, it's organic, and everyone rises at their own pace. Would this be a fair assessment of of what you have mentioned so far?
Mostly right. Mostly I agree with you. The word caste itself comes from a Portuguese word called casta. And it just means a hierarchy. You're right. The way they look at it is clergy is on the top, and they can always control the kings, and they say, I will excommunicate you if you don't follow the dictum from the papacy or the local cardinal, right? They would always hold it against the king and hold it over the king. And their seafarers and their merchants were serfs, and definitely their serfs. The thing, they were treated very, very badly. And they had the system. And because they did not understand our Varnashrama Dharma, they thought that this is how we were too. And remember, their whole perspective was to legitimize their rule in India, especially the British. So they made this, say, okay, caste system, this is a caste system. And they said, oh, we've reformed and you have not reformed. There's nothing to reform. They basically created an artificial system here, and not understanding as you put it, an organic whole that we had, this ecosystem that we had, where no one occupation was considered more higher than the other. And we really valued people based on their character. And they created this pyramid, leaving out the karma and guna factor. So I agree with most of what you said. Yes.
Go to the next one, Rekha.
Hello.
Yeah, please go
Namaste.
ahead,
Namaste, sir. Today's presentation was amazing. So I have a couple of questions. First thing is, you must have, we all know that tomorrow Ayodhya is being lit up because of Ram Janmabhoomi. I don't know whether people have seen that, but it was said that Ram's pictures would be put on Times Square, and then because of some Muslim organizations which had come forward and said don't do that, it's been stopped. So NASDAQ and the company which is putting the ads, it has stopped. It's not going to display the picture of Ram and all. My question is, are we so helpless as Hindus, as Sanatan Dharma followers? Are we so helpless that we can't even get our things done, get our idols or get our gods even pushed to this forefront?
I understand. So I understand the question. So let me respond to it. So the real fundamental question is, why are we helpless? Why is it that we can't propagate our point of view and so on? Now remember that for the last 200 years, 150 years, completely colonized. And many of us were trained to become white people in thought, but brown in terms of skin color, right? So that's how we think. And in the last 50 to 70 years, we have essentially taught, the teaching was done by the communists who basically wanted to destroy Hinduism in us. We are beginning to organize, and we are not doing it very well. We are coming about it. If you think about it, the amount of money that needs to be spent on these ads would have been several $1 million. Imagine if you had put that several $1 million to work in India, you could change dramatically things in India. Okay, so the whole idea itself, if you ask me, was ill-conceived. Yes, it's good to brand, but this is not how you brand. Now, what is it that Hindus can do? Now, you can do a lot of things. Each of us can become a warrior. Very simple. Do not buy anything from people who are against you. But the part of the principles that we covered, we talked about a little bit of sacrifice that one needs to do, right? That you don't lie or covet, right? So you sacrifice something for yourself, of yourself, of what you want. Avoid excessive possession of something that are not good for you, and then you can change the tribe. When we were in the US, in the California Bay Area, we started a group called Prakash in the mid 90s, or 93 actually. And the primary focus of that organization was to influence India policy in Washington. It was the first such organization, community oriented, ground up organization. We grew dramatically and very fast. We had 5,000 people at that time in our thing. And we stopped several things. We stopped the sale of F-16s, second set of F-16s to Pakistan. Second is we stopped the sale of M11 missiles to Pakistan, and several things like that, right? We stopped human rights bills that would think to India, and so on. And therefore, you can organize, don't vote for people. It's a choice that you guys need to make. So you need to organize politically, you need to organize socially, but most importantly, you need to come together to support Sanatana Dharma in India. So, for example, Swamiji always says, if there is a big tree, if you go water branches of a tree, it's not going to help the tree. You need to water the roots of the tree so that the tree will then prosper and give it. So many of you are there, many Indian Americans, when they come to India and we talk about it, they say, oh, we do a lot of social service in US. Great that you're doing social service in India. But that is like watering the branches. What are you doing to water the roots, right? You come here, we become more organized, it becomes stronger, then the whole approach of the world will change, the whole attitude of the world. But it needs to be very organized, and people have to be willing to sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice for? That's the age. You need to raise new soldiers, new people who will rise up to the occasion and have a good view of our future. But you can't have a good view of future if you don't have a good view of your past, and that is what we've done with Dharmamulam and programs like that.
Who mainly, like in India, follows Sanatana Dharma? Because I don't know.
It's a very good question. Who in India follows Sanatana Dharma? Actually, not many people in terms of these principles that we talked about. What's happened in India is over 70 years, they have slowly moved Sanatana Dharma away from bhakti. They've created a thing of bhakti and made the bhakti move away from Sanatana Dharma. Bhakti is going to temples and praying and so on. So basically, they've divorced it slowly over a period of time, and we haven't even realized it. So if you go to a temple, you will find tens of thousands of people coming there. You go for a pradosham prayer, you will find the whole temple is jam-packed. But if you ask many of them anything about Sanatana Dharma, they won't know. So the latent bhakti is there, but they don't know the principles behind it. So people follow Sanatana Dharma not in terms of the principles, but they follow the bhakti aspect of Sanatana Dharma, which is a saving grace, right? So it is not dead. It all that the civilization is living. They follow many aspects of the civilization in terms of, they do the rangoli, they get up in the morning, they go to the temple, they cook good foods and do nevidyam at home, they do prayers at home. Almost everybody does those things, right? Not just brahmanas, but everybody does. But if you ask them why they are doing it, what is their purpose, and what is Sanatana Dharma, they won't be able to answer. That is why people like you need to learn so that you can educate people more and more in better ways going forward.
For Swamiji, he followed the Dharma without even inch here and left and right. So, and he also makes sure that his others also follow, but it is up to us and like how he guides others also to follow. So, if you want to experience and see that is, you can visit there. Yeah.
See, if Shankaracharya to follow Dharma is given, Sharmaji, so that is given.
Was the Madison's curve which you showed. So typically these leftist media outlets, they would purposefully show the graph of which was there from 1500s to about now, and then they would say that during Akbar's time the graph actually went up. They wouldn't show what happened before, what it was before Akbar's time. They wanted to whitewash Akbar and Aurangzeb.
I agree with one aspect of what you're saying. Yes, they would want to show from the time of when Akbar started to rule, but the graph actually does not show an increase during Akbar's time. It's actually a declination. If you look at the thing closely, because there was constant war. Remember, Akbar never had peace. Neither did Aurangzeb, right? Every ruler fought them over and over and over again. They never gave up. They always fought them. And that's why there was a lot of money that was taken from temples as loot. And that did not go into the country, into the nation, but it was essentially used for personal pleasures of the ruler to do it. So I agree that the communists show the graph wrongly to show how it's done. The communists, the way they rationalize it, they call it, that is the Hindu rate of growth, and that's why it's low. This is stupidity, right? The Hindu rate of growth is a name, it's a terminology that was coined by a communist economist. And you know what the communists have done to the economy in every country that they've ruled, right? And they are no longer communist nations in the world. And you see what's going on.
Is there any hard proof that, like, stuff like things that happened in your previous life affect your life now exist? Like, is there any hard proof, because there are like so many possibilities of what can be possible? So I'm just saying, like, how do we know that this is it?
I got it. So the Western way of looking at things is a cause and effect. Like you have a science experiment that you set, you boil this chemical and it turns this color, it gives you a smoke, and that's experiential, right? That's the way it is done. We have that system. We also have a system called inference, which is slowly being accepted in the science community today, especially in the quantum scientists to explain phenomena that they don't understand. So what you need to do is you need to look at anumanam. Anumanam is inference. So if somebody, let's say that there is a family and there are two children, they are twins, born to the same parents. One child is very strong, the other child is not. Why would that happen?
Well, maybe like they are just born like that, you know?
So now you're whitewashing it, right? You're hand waving. So you need to tell me if twins, I'm not talking about siblings. I'm talking about siblings meaning born different times. They are twins, and one is strong, the other one is weak. Why would that happen? They're born, they've germinated at the same time, and they've conceived at the same time. They're born at the same time. They're born in the same circumstances. They're born to the same parents. They live in the same environment. Why is that different?
Maybe because like different cells interacted in different ways and it
Good.
happened.
So there is something that got this one child to be strong and one child to be weak for whatever reason. That we call adrishtapalam. That cannot be seen. That is what adrishtapalam means. And why would it's just a chance. People can say, oh, it's just a chance that somebody got this way or that way. Who rolls the dice? Why should, and the Christians and the Muslims, they'll say it's the will of God. If that is the will of God to make one child strong and the other guy weak for no arbitrary reason, I would say that is a very cruel God. Right? If they are born to the same parents, that would be a very cruel God. So there has to be something better, an answer better. The theory that we have is that it is based on karma. And it has now been accepted almost by everyone, including Christians, that it's possible that, your past life is there, which means it goes against their whole principles of you have a single life, you are born, you get dressed, you get buried in a coffin, and you appear before God on Judgment Day. Okay? It goes against their principles, but many theologians within the church themselves have started accepting, even Muslims, some theological Muslims have started accepting this fact that, maybe there was something that is influencing life differently. And if not, then you need to come up with a better theory. It is not saying, oh, it's just somebody is rolling a dice or it's just a freak accident. Because if it's a freak accident, let me ask you this. There is, let's say, the Deep Blue, the computer, right? The IBM's chess playing computer, supercomputer. Is Deep Blue beats all the grandmasters of the world? Is the Deep Blue smarter than all the grandmasters in the world? Umesh?
Yes.
Okay. So how did it get that intelligence?
Because it has been studying.
Well, it has been studying, but who put in the logic to get it to study?
Teachers, parents.
So some creators, somebody who is very smart, who's taught it to learn, and it has learned over a period of time. It's got logic, it's got certain principles. Somebody fed in a lot of data, correct data, and with a lot of support, it grew to learn more and more. Now, who would you attribute the intelligence to? So, can a non-intelligent entity create Deep Blue?
Maybe.
See, now you're hand waving. Okay. So if you say maybe, then you need to tell me who this non-intelligent entity is that created Deep Blue.
Yeah.
So you see where I'm going with this, right? So
yeah.
So the point here is, remember, these are all theories. In our Shastras, we do not discourage people to ask questions. In fact, we want people to ask questions. We want people to challenge the norm, but in a respectful way. It is called pariprashna. Krishna talks about it in the Gita as pariprashna, meaning ask with humility, ask with respect, understand the greatness of our culture. There have been amazingly great people who have created all these things in the world, who have seen different things in the world. They've come up with some kind of a solution and some kind of a system. If you don't agree with it, understand what it is first before you disagree with it, and ask question in a reverential way so that you can understand why they make it. And if you still disagree, it's okay to say you disagree. Okay, but you need to come up with a good reason as to why you disagree. You can't say, I disagree because I don't agree. So then you can say that if you don't agree that East should be called East, so tomorrow onwards, I'm going to call East South. And this is what I'm going to do. How ridiculous would that logic be, right? And tomorrow you can say the sun rises in the south. If that's what you go and tell people in the world, would they accept your point of view just because you are asserting it? You may be the smartest person in the world, right? So it's okay to challenge, but you need to look at it objectively.
Yeah, I was just asking because, like, I just wanted to know if there was, like, hard proof whether, whether these things exist. Yeah.
See, Umesh, the question is, what do you consider hard proof? That is the thing. There are several stories. There are Puranic stories. There are Ithihasic stories. There are Vedantic stories that talk about it. But one can't say that these are hard proofs. Why? Because I can't make it pratyaksham. I can't make it apparent to you. Because I have experienced, say, for example, I'm sleeping. I am dreaming that I am being chased by a tiger. Can I transfer that fear to you? I'm sure all of you have experienced it. You sometimes work in the middle of the night, sweating, palpitating, and you're panting at in the middle of the night because you've had this kind of a nightmare or something. So the only cure for that is you need to wake up, right? So in this case, I can't transfer my experience, even if I've experienced past lives or my various lives, and if I experience regression in my life to understand my past, I can't transfer my anubhavam, my experience to you. I can only talk about it, but you will say, show me the proof. I can't show you the proof because it's something that happened inside me and it happens to me, right? If I need to go to previous life, it has to be not in this physical body, correct? If I'm going back in time, it can't be in this physical body. It has to be in my mind. And at the most, I can only communicate what I experienced. But you may not agree with it. Make sense?
All right.
Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, thanks. And Umesh, don't think that I'm dismissing what you're saying, okay? It's a very valid comment, and I'm being as frank and objective as I can be.
Okay, Arvind, I want to ask a question.
Sure.
When it comes to the dharma and talking about the dharma, there are few questions regularly comes for everyone. I just want to repeat the same questions to the every speaker, so that everyone can give their own way of logic and explaining it to the participants. The one of it is a Manudharma. Many people criticize the Manudharma, why it is wrong and what is it and all the things and all. How to justify in a few things in that, like something is.
So it's not about justifying. So remember, Manu Smriti. Smriti is a treatise written by an individual that is appropriate for that particular point in time specifically, but it can also be relevant across time. There are many parts of Manusmriti that we still follow today, right? Now, when you talk about Manusmriti, my question is, okay, let me give a context. I was visiting the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and I was staying at somebody's well-known person's house, somebody who's famous and very well-known in Kashmir. From a family like that, I was staying with them. And one of the persons who came for breakfast one day was a serving judge of the High Court. And soon we started getting into discussion. So one of the things that he said is, how do you deal with Manusmriti, the caste system in Manusmriti? The first question I asked him was, he said, have you read the Manusmriti? I said, which one? completely blew him out of the water because he
Yeah,
didn't
translation.
understand. He thought there is only one Manusmriti. Guess what? There are 64 versions of Manusmriti available in India. And nobody knows what is the Vulgate, what is the original, what is the thing. The one that we consider Vulgate today was a translation done by a Bengali individual who was paid by the British to create it. Now, how credible is that going to be? And they propped that up as the Manusmriti of today. And, most pundits, even at that time and even today, disagree with this so-called Vulgate version of Manusmriti that we have. Okay. That is point number one. Point number two is we need to understand what Manu said from a holistic standpoint. Now, Manusmriti talks about Varnashrama Dharma in great detail. But people, again, will choose only one part and focus on the caste system. The other thing that they will focus on is the crimes, the punishment that he metes out to various Varnas. For example, he says the Brahmana, the prime for a Brahmana is that the Brahmana should go apradakshinam in a temple. Not pradakshinam, but apradakshinam. Why? Because every time he goes apradakshinam, he loses the good karmas he's done for several lives. So you can see from a Brahmana's perspective, he has ascended in karma over a period of time, regardless of his wealth or whatever. But he's automatically going to be downgraded so badly from a position of learning. He's going to be treated like a laborer somewhere. Okay. For a Kshatriya, his punishment was exile. Get rid of him, take his kingdom away from him, and exile. Why? Because for a Kshatriya, the kingdom is the most important thing. And if you take away the kingdom, the Kshatriya has no power. Okay? If you look at Vaishya, it is money. It's huge fines. What is the most important thing to a Vaishya? It is wealth. If you take away the wealth, he has got nothing. For Shudra, it is death. What is the most important thing for Shudra is life. It's for living. And if you take away from that, he's got nothing. So that is what he is saying. Now, what they say is, oh, but Brahmanas have wealthy today. And if you make them do this, he will still keep in his wealth. Brahmanas being wealthy today is an accident of history that has happened because of the last 150 years. Generally, Brahmanas are supposed to be poor. They are not supposed to have wealth. Even if they had wealth, their wealth was used only for good purposes and good karma. It was not used for their own karma. That is never allowed in our Shatras. So in the last 50 years, we perverted the system so badly, 150 years, we perverted the system so badly that Brahmanas are richer, but they live without Dharma. Okay, so you can't use that. You have to go look at the context in which it was said for you to be able to handle it.
Okay. And one more wrong perception, or maybe it is some kind of a perception exists in the people that people who follow the Dharma, they all cannot be, they have to give up the life, whatever it is, in a regular job. Like you are in a job, I am also in job. We are all in job and prospered ourselves we accumulated money and they say that is no, all these things are not part of the Dharma, and they give a perception like, you just have to give up everything and sit in a tree and do some kind of a puja tapas on that.
In fact, the system divides the society into 4 groups of people. One is brahmacharyas. Most of the people on the call are brahmacharyas, unmarried people, students studying somewhere. Second is grihastha ashrama. Grihasthas are people like you and I, like Sitaram and other people, right? We are working somewhere and we are earning money. Third is the vanaprastha, people who are retired. Fourth is sannyasis. Now, out of these 4, who is the most important?
Most important is brahmacharis. I
No,
feel.
no. The most important is the grahasthas. You know why?
Yeah,
Very
they are
simple.
the keeping the system alive, right? Yeah.
They are the
They're
guys who are
making
making
it
the money. They are
right,
the guys who are making the money. They are funding the brahmacharis,
right,
funding the vanaprasthis, the retirees, and they're funding the sannyasis. If you
right.
don't have the grahasthas, the other three cannot exist. So the grahasthas are very most important. So in fact, that's one of the things I said earlier on. I really hope that all of you guys become billionaires, but you make billions and billions of dollars, but you use the money wisely for good purposes so that the world will be a better place. That would be the ideal way to do it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And Krishna himself says that we don't want, there are 8 billion people in the world, we don't want 8 billion sannyasis in the world. If you have 8 billion sannyasis, then who's going to feed these 8 billion sannyasis, right? So,
yeah. And yeah, you rightly pointed out that is a one good point you raised. It is our dharma. It gives the 4 ashramas, and that depends on the stage they can do the whatever it is defined for. So keep the cycle up and running. So it is not like just every time is in a vanaprastha and the moksha kind of. No, agree.
correct.
So, but people not able to understand the first 2 parts of it, brahmacharyam and then the second one, grihastha,
Grahastha.
grihastha. These 2 are the not propagated and lot and explained it to the people in education system in modern education. So people always think that is the other 2 are the part of it. The first 2 are not part of it.
Actually, Sharma, even amongst old people, even in India, they don't know the difference.
Right, agree.
Okay? And they tend to think that because they are retired, they are more knowledgeable and they are superior. In our system, that's not so. After you get married, here is the thing. For Brahmanas, how do you determine one Brahmana was the other and say who's superior? It is learning. For a Kshatriya, it is parakramam or bravery. For Vaishyas, it's money. For Shudra, it's about work or age. It's about age. So it is not only respecting age, you have to be respectful of age, but you need to understand where you are in your life and understand who the other person is and accord respect based on these 4 things. For Brahmana, learning; for Kshatriya, parakramam; Vaishya's money; and for Shudra's age. Right? So it's not just about, many parents, I know, I've heard many parents tell their children, listen to me because I'm older. That is not the right argument. I mean, I've argued enough with my parents about these things, right? And I know how frustrated some of the people on the audience will be here sometimes, not being able to argue. Doesn't mean, guys, don't follow. Don't. I'm not saying don't respect your parents or not follow their things. Question your parents. Ask answers in a respectful manner. If they are unable to answer those questions, now your parents have a way to reach out to anybody from the panel that Sharma has put together. Please come to us and ask us questions. We'll be very happy to give you a thing. You know, the discussion that I had with Umesh, right, was a very good question, and that's the way it should be. It should be handled in a way that makes sense to the other side, so they can not necessarily be, you don't thrust a concept down the throat. You need to convince the person to understand what it is.
Right. Yeah, we have so many Tarkasastra and Vyakarana. All these are there to explain it in a detail and everything, whatever it is, logics and give them the answers. Sridhar?
Sir, yeah, sir. This is regarding conversions. How do you tackle people like Brahmins who are converting? There are many Brahmins who are converted, and then what they do is they still maintain that they are Brahmins who have converted, and they start converting others.
That's right.
And
So yeah, for money.
you know,
Yeah.
unfortunately, what is happening is those people are in powerful positions, and they influence the people
Okay.
who are
Yeah, we
well.
understand. I'll tell you. I'll simply tell you. One of the answers for this Swamiji said, like, we have to create a non-political leaders, right, Arvind? Always Swamiji says that we have to create a leaders who are the dharmic leaders, and they have to take care of these kind of activities now. And it is a yes, damage happened and damage is happening, and so how can we counter it? We have to create a leaders.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Arvind, right?
dharmic leaders. I'll tell you something, Srireka. Lot of people who pretend to be atheists and who pretend to be, don't care about the culture and whatever, they are the biggest bucks of Sanatana Dharma. They put on an entire Vesham, Veli Vesham outside, and that Vesham is what people see. But internally, they are very different. They have a private life and a public life, and they are different. Now, how do you deal with that? A, creating dharmic leaders. Second is boycotting them. Vote with your pocketbook. Your pocketbook is your strongest weapon. Exclude them from your life. In fact, even the Shastras say, don't even talk to a Nastika, because Nastika will convince you to become a Nastika, because he will keep saying the same thing again and again and again. And you are thinking, and you don't have the answers. If you don't have a good guru, and if you don't have somebody giving you the answers, you'll say, maybe he's right. So,
Yeah, same thing. Like whatever Umesh said, like we can't prove it. It is there is a another birth, and there is a punarjanma or a previous birth. So by saying 10 times, he will say that is no, they are not able to prove it. Now I'll agree with you. So
yeah. But the conversation that I had with Umesh, which others I hope they
yeah, he is okay. Yeah, I
appreciate
think.
it. Because the conversation is that neither party can prove it can work or not.
Yeah, some things we can't prove it.
We can only infer, you can only infer, you can only deduce, but you can't prove these things because it's a anubhavam of an individual, and it's not physical anubhavam. Anyway.
Narayana? To want to
Today
ask
we
him
learn
better.
more. Yeah, today we learn more things with the Sitaram. Yeah, we learned a lot because I didn't know about the Manushruti is the 64 forms. And,
Okay.
yeah, we are so pleased to learn lot of
Yeah,
things. Thank you so
there
much.
are so many translations exist. We shouldn't depend on the translation. We have to go to the Moola and then see, and also we have to understand the meaning through the gurus, not from our own book thing. I think we already had a listen to the story in Guru Parampara, why it is Guru
Yes,
important and other stuff and also. Okay.
yes.
Wife wants to ask a question from you, sir.
Yeah, namaste, sir. So as Sharma ji told, our education system changed a lot of things last like 50 years, right? They put in lot of than the Sanatanic Dharma, because even when I was a kid, I used to learn Kambaramayanam. I used to take Tamil medium. So they used to teach, but nowadays I think all those things has taken away. So now education system is they are putting up in India now. So is
Yeah, it is all going to improve the system.
I think so. I think well, there are three things that I like about this education system, right? One is they are going to focus on Sanskrit as a primary focus. And in fact, even many people have not read the Constitution of India. They should. And one of the articles, I forget the number, specifically talks about importance of Sanskrit. And it was also promoted by even people like Ambedkar, who was the chairman of the committee that framed the Constitution. That is one important aspect. Second is the diversity of languages that people will learn, right? That is going to be a very enhancing thing. Third is focused on a sort of a German model of work skills development. Not everybody needs to be a science. Not everybody needs to understand botany. Most people, don't know what, stamen is today. They don't care. It's not relevant to their life. Nobody needs to understand what is the interaction between hydrogen and chlorine. What is that going to happen? They're not going to work on it. But whereas if you can give them an understanding of chemistry, understanding of biology, but then focus on giving them skills, then they can become better, skilled employees, but they will also have a good base where they can have continuing education, which this one provides, where they can go learn. Okay, so these are three things I really like about this new system. It's better than the old one. We'll see how it goes.
And in end, I want to say that we are very fortunate that is today we are in the age of Ram Janmabhoomi and is born having a temple back again. I think it is a 500 years. So many people might have wished it.
So Periva, one of the things that he
Yeah,
said,
please go ahead. Yeah.
everybody to do is tomorrow chant this mantra 108 times. Ram Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Ram. Chant that 108 times, all of you. Because this is collective goodness, right, that you pass on. And it cleanses your mind, it brings your focus to what it is. And even though you're not physically there, you are not physically contributing to the effort, you're mentally contributing and mentally participating. And it's very crucial.
And there are few, there are few webinars tomorrow. I think Matam organized it. Some few prominent people are coming and pundits coming and talking about the same thing. And also we all can have to. This is the time we have to remember that how Pudipiriva given efforts, too much effort he put on today's this thing, and we have to recognize that, and we have to explain to the all the people who are not aware of these things, and so we have to take it that one.
It's because of his efforts that it's come to this. Otherwise, it won't have.
And recently, somebody is reminding me there is a one meeting with P.V. Narasimha Rao and Pudipiriva and Balpiriva was there in open meeting, and that particular meeting is a deciding factor for a lot of things. So yeah, there are a lot of efforts he put.
Yeah, Pudipiriva, in fact, personally has told me certain stories that I can't share in public domain as to what happened in many of those meetings. And it's very educative about how much time and energy he had spent with so many diverse kinds of people, whether they be in Congress or BJP or Muslim parties and communists and even and Hindus, how he brought them all together in multiple different ways and getting them to see a common vision. Right? It calls for great leadership. Such leaders are very hard to find, maybe happen once in a yuga.
Yeah, I agree. And that is one of the things I heard from many people that the way he managed it and bringing them everyone together, and the kinds to give 2-3 examples of that particular period of it. Yeah, it is very challenging. I think it is another Shankara avatar of it. He proved that those skills are still in every Shankaracharya today.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So with this note, I think Jai Shri Ram, we will hope tomorrow everything will go good and the foundation stone will go on, and then very soon we'll see the Ram temple.
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram.
Okay, thank you, Arvind.
Thank you.
Thank you for all this effort, and very soon we hope to see you more in different topics and give us enlightenment on many things. And I will thank all the participants for their putting their questions and understanding it. Okay, Arvind.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Enjoyed interacting with all of you. And if you have any follow-up questions or whatever, or if you want to get into some more details, please contact Sharma and he will set up another forum for us to discuss.
We do have a platform for that, and they are all aware of it, and we will surely come to you with their questions and other things.
Yeah, and please chant this mantram, Ram Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Ram. 108. Jai Jai Ram.